Welcome back everyone. I think the next logical thing to learn how to do is how to save programs. So save Python files. I'm going to be using MicroPython for this, and I'm going to be showing you how to save the files to the Raspberry Pi Pico. The reason we want to do this is at the moment we've only learned how to run programs from the PC on the Raspberry Pi Pico, but what we need to ideally know how to do is to save those programs on the Raspberry Pi Pico. Then the next step after that is to save a main.py file on the Raspberry Pi Pico, so that as soon as we give it power, as soon as we plug it in, it can start running the code that's been saved on there. So I'm going to show you how to do this now. Step one, I need to plug my Raspberry Pi Pico into my PC. That was the connection sound there. I already have my funny window open. I've plugged my Raspberry Pi in. All I need to do at this point is to click on the bottom right hand corner of my window. And when I click, I'm going to have some options here. The one I am going to click on is the very first one that says MicroPython Raspberry Pi Pico. When I click on that one, it's going to reload my IDE. And this down here tells me it's been loaded into MicroPython version 1.24.1. It gives the most recent date of the firmware I'm using. And it says Raspberry Pi Pico W with RP2040. That's perfect. What we did before was I did print and I did quotes in here and I put hello world. What this does, this runs the code on the Raspberry Pi Pico but from the PC. So I'm basically pushing the code from the PC to the Raspberry Pi Pico. Ideally, what you would want is to have the code directly on the Raspberry Pi Pico again, as I mentioned. So as soon as you plug it in, it can start doing what it needs to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to save this program to the Raspberry Pi Pico. Very simple. I'm going to go to File and I can click on Save, or some people prefer to click on the save icon here that looks like a floppy disk. Some people prefer the shortcut, which is for me is going to be Control and S. If you're on a Mac OS laptop or desktop, it's going to be Command and S. So I'm going to press Control and S now, and this window is going to come up. It's going to ask me if I want to save the code to this computer that I'm using, so my laptop, or do I want to save it to the Raspberry Pi Pico. I'm going to choose Raspberry Pi Pico because we need to learn how to save to the Pico. I'm going to click on that. It's going to ask me for the name. The way I name my programs is very simple. You can name it anything you want, but I'm going to call my one 01. I'm going to put a hyphen or a dash. You don't need to do this. You can name it anything you want. The reason I'm doing it this way is that I'm going to be having loads and loads of programs on my Raspberry Pi Pico. So if I name it 01 and I name the next one 02, then 03, then 04, it's going to tell me exactly which one is the correct one I need to load. So it just helps me stay organized. I'm going to call it 01 hello world, and I'm going to use camel case. And camel case means that every new word either begins with a lowercase or an uppercase letter. And then at the very end, I'm going to put .py. So that tells it it's a Python file. So again, the name of mine is 01-hello world.py. I click on OK. That's now been saved to the Raspberry Pi Pico, but how do we tell? We can't see any of the files on the Pico. You simply go up to the very top of your window on Funny, and you're going to click on View, and from View you click on the third option that says Files, and then it's going to show you all the files on your PC. You can browse to any folder you want, and it's also going to show you the files on the Raspberry Pi Pico. So that's the very first file I have there, 01hello world.py. So I'm going to close this and do another one just because. So if I do a new file, and I'm going to call this one print number. So let's put a number up here. I'm going to say number equals 100. I'm going to print number. Again, I'm going to play this to run it and look at the very bottom of my screen. It should work perfectly fine. There we go. It runs fine. I'm going to save this one again. So Control S to save, or you can click on the icon here, or you can go to File and then choose Save. It's going to ask where I want to save it. I'm going to choose Raspberry Pi Pico. I'm going to click on that, and this time I'm going to name it 02 dash what should I call this one? Print number.py. Then I'm going to click OK, and again that comes under here. So this is how you save programs to the Raspberry Pi Pico. This code that you can see on my screen is going to flash the LED on and off every 0.5 seconds, so every half a second. I will put the code in the description so you can grab it from there. This is only to show you how to save the code to your Raspberry Pi Pico W, so that as soon as you plug it in, as soon as you give it power, it starts doing what it needs to do. I will be going over code for the Raspberry Pi and Python and all of that later on, but this is just to show people how to save it to the Pico and get it running. All right, so first things first, once you have your code all there, I'm going to go to File and I'm going to go to Save so I can save it onto my Raspberry Pi Pico. So File, Save. I'm going to choose my Raspberry Pi Pico from the list that comes up, and then from here I'm going to call this one main.py, main.py. And what that's going to do, as soon as I plug the cable in to give it power, I'm going to show this to you guys as well. The LED will start flashing. So I'm going to click OK here. I'm going to run this program just to make sure it works first. So I'm going to click play on my window here just to run it. I did make a tiny mistake. So here, where it had pin 25, this is for the Raspberry Pi Pico, the original one, not the Pico W. For the Pico W, you have to put LED in quotes here to tell it to use the LED. It's still wired to pin 25, I believe. I don't remember exactly. But all we have to do here is change this to LED in quotes and it will work fine. So now if I play this, as you can see down here, my LED is flashing. So now I'm going to show you that as soon as I plug my cable in, this is going to be working fine. Right, so here we are. I'm going to unplug my Raspberry Pi Pico. There's no power going to it, and now all I'm going to do is to plug that cable in, and as soon as I plug this in, just keep an eye out for the LED. It should start flashing straight away. So plug that in, not pressing anything at all. You can see that LED there, perfect. So that's working fine. So that's all you need to do to transfer code to your Raspberry Pi Pico, and then if you save it as main.py, it should start running that code straight away. So just imagine a use case for this, right? You have your Raspberry Pi Pico out in the world, out in the real world somewhere, and you are using some sensors to gather information, whatever sensors you want to use, and as soon as you plug this into a battery pack, a power source, whatever it is at all, it starts running straight away. The sensors fire up, it starts recording its values, it starts saving to the Pico, it starts transferring whatever you need it to do, it starts doing it straight away without you having to get a computer to plug it in. To then, we don't need to do all of that. Plug it in, give it power, main.py runs, everything is perfect. Thanks for watching, stay tuned.